1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, nothing.
Oh, never mind.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sweden.
Time for the council meeting, dear.
Oh, it's nothing.
George,
Yes, dear.
did you hear me?
What?
The council meeting, time to go. It wouldn't look good for the mayor to be late.
Oh, Daddy!
You're right.
Oh!
And so are the girls, too. Another boring old meeting.
I hope you're not getting bored with all the meetings. You've let yourself in for a lot more by getting into Parliament.
I must do what I can. First the council, and now there's a lot more that needs to be done for the state.
Well, off you go and get it done.
But Daddy, you promised to sing some songs with us.
I'm sorry. We'll have to do that tomorrow.
Oh, Daddy! Oh, it isn't fair.
Now come on, girls. I'll play for you.
It's his premier now that I sing. Tra-la, for cabinet men I will choose. George Swinburne to home I must bring. Tra-la, in England he's there for the spring. Tra-la, cable to him with this news. What job he wants, give us his views. The Treasury, even if he'll end his fling. But water supply, public works are the things. Tra-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la, public water and works are the things. There's yet no reply to our cable, tra-la.
The state is impatient for news.
A place will be kept at the table, tra-la.
The telegram now bears your label, tra-la. Except waterworks, he does choose.
This word waterworks how's construed? Its meaning's obscure and it seems like a fable. Well, at least he's coming home, says the cable.
Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, he's coming on home, says the cable.
Swinburne accepts water supply portfolio. Also tip for agriculture department.
Swinburne? Mr. Swinburne, is it true you're against the old age pension?
Certainly not. But we have to cut back on expenditure somewhere.
We're told the government is also threatening to cut back on technical education.
Well, I won't get my vote on that.
You mean, sir, you'd vote against it in the cabinet?
I would indeed. No technical education, no proper apprenticeships. No proper apprenticeships, no skilled tradesmen. No skilled tradesmen, no industry. Common sense.
Sir, there's been a lot of criticism of your water bill.
Rubbish. Both sides of the House have supported it. Even editorials in The Age and The Argus. No matter what anybody says, the fact remains that the state's water is a national asset. And as such, it should be owned by the state. That's what the water bill is all about.
Some people, sir, accuse you of sailing dangerously close to socialism.
I don't give tuppence for your isms, sir. I say that any man who wants to go on the land's entitled to a fair start. A chance to buy land, build a house, make improvements. We should even try to get them help to buy some stock before the start.
Mr. Swinburne, a lot of people are worried about the infant mortality rate.
Caused by what? The milk?
Yes, sir.
Well, we have to combine supervising dairying activities and educating everybody. From the dairy to the doorstep. Technical standards have to be raised right up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have another appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Swinburne.
You may be interested to know that I find it fascinating that so many of the community's problems seem to find their way back to education for a solution. Good morning.
George was indeed very successful in Parliament, as well as in business. Our destinies parted when I went to Canada, but I remained in contact, of course, with the family. You know, I've always felt that in spite of George being, in a sense, an adventurer, we all were in those days. We saw opportunities and we went out after them. However, George was a very proper man, He was deeply concerned by the amount of liquor he saw consumed in the community and by the prevalence of illegal gambling, in spite of recently passed legislation. Now, this became a real problem for George, and it drew him into conflict with one of the most powerful men in Victoria at that time. This, of course, was John Wren. The problem came to a head the evening before the 1970 election. George's candidature was opposed by Dr. Marmaduke Rose, whom George had discovered was nothing more than a nominee of Jack Wren. George was to address a meeting. By 7:30, the hall was packed.
Good boy, Jack. 3 more for Jack Wren. Why don't Swinburne apologise to Jack Wren in the paper,
Nobody but the candidate is allowed to speak. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to see so many present, and I am glad that a number of you do not agree with me. But if you do not agree, the least you can do is hear what I have to say.
What about the Warunga Basin?
I think it is my right to criticize my political opponent and the men who fight his battle. My opponent represents the worst elements of drinking and gambling. I charge Dr. Rose with endeavoring to get into Parliament to repeal the Gambling Act. Mr. Wren, one of the nominees of Dr. Rose, speaks of duty to a great sport and the preservation of a great industry. The great sport is racing, and the great industry is the Collingwood tote.
What about paying men £5 a day?
The gaming bill is a determined effort to crush out of existence the Collingwood tote and all associated with it. I only hope that those who support it will establish a communistic settlement on Flinders Island, do honest work and see how they get on.
We're joining for the salary and nothing else. That's
We
all
are
we
getting
care
on
about.
very nicely, but we could do with a little less interruption. There are a few gentlemen who are carried away by their exuberance of spirit and admiration for Mr. Swinburne. I don't want any unpleasantness, but I will have to name some gentlemen if they continue to interrupt.
It is very hot here. Mr. Wren wishes to reply to me here. Mr. Wren can hire a hall for himself.
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen,
Mr. Wren, please, put your hands off me.
as Mr. Swinburne is a man professing to be a very righteous individual, did he in 1902 vote for a reduction in the minimum rate of wage on the Warunga Basin?
I cannot recall my votes in 1902.
There's a division list.
I know I raised the men's wages by £1 a day not long ago.
As the ratepayer of this community, I demand a straight-out answer. Did you or did you... Get out of my way! Did you or did you not in 1900... I told you, William, don't you...
That scene with Jack Wren, as it turned out, did not affect my vote at the election. However, the wheels of politics were beginning to grind over the rough ground. The newspapers seized every opportunity. And both the Premier, Tommy Bent, and myself became the targets of strong criticism.